The world is going through changes. Changes happening at a speed that we have never seen before. This is leading to disruption, chaos, panic, fear, hysteria, and a turbulent economy and marketplace. How do you protect your wealth in a turbulent world? How do you invest for cash flow in alternative assets to escape the rat race in times of uncertainty? How do you decentralize yourself, your family, your community, your business, and your investments to become sovereign and escape the matrix? If you are looking for strategies, tactics, and techniques to escape the rat race and matrix, you are in the right place. My name is MC Lobsher, and this is Cashflow Ninja. This is Cashflow Ninja. I'm MC Lobsher. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Cashflow Ninja and spending your most valuable resource, your time, once again with me. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. That's cashflowninja.com. At cashflowninja.com, you could find 3 of our podcasts: Cashflow Ninja, Cashflow Investing Secrets, and Reset Investing Secrets. You can also grab a copy of my book, The 21 Best Cashflow Niches, subscribe to my newsletter, the Best Cashflow Niches newsletter, in which we share one brand new cash flow niche, well-researched every single month, or you can join our mastermind, Cashflow Nirvana, which is a community of business owners and investors that's looking to protect and build wealth during turbulent times. I've got a fantastic show for you today. I'm joined by Don Wenner. He is the CEO of DLP Capital. He is involved in a lot of amazing things. Don, fantastic to have you on the show.
It is an honor and a privilege. Thank you for letting me join you here today.
Absolutely. Now, for folks, for our listeners and viewers that's not familiar with you and your background and what you do, can you please share a little bit with them?
Yeah, love to. So as we were chatting a little bit ago, grew up in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, which is kind of an hour and a half north of Philadelphia. And grew up to 2 young parents. They had me at 16 years old, obviously high school students. And I'm the oldest of ultimately 5, and grew up with, as you would expect, by 2 16-year-olds, very limited means. Dad was a prison guard most of my childhood, and my mom ran a home daycare. So I'd pretty much every day have 5 or 6 kids that weren't my siblings in my house, plus my younger siblings every day. And there's the interesting conversation as, we both have young kids of nature versus nurture. And I don't know exactly what it was, but I had a strong entrepreneurial kind of bent from a very young age. Was selling whatever I could to classmates in elementary school, was running a business in middle school, knew what I was going to do by 8th grade, which was become a financial advisor, which is not what I did, but what I knew I was going to do then, and moved out of my parents' house as a 17-year-old, a junior in high school, and went out on my own and determined I knew better, and supported my way through college, and ultimately I'll say stumbled into real estate at 20 years old, still in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That was the October 2006, so it was the kind of peak of the market, right before the market started shifting. And my business was finding homeowners who needed to sell their home and kind of providing them options. Either we'd step in and buy their home, we would help them sell their home through our real estate brokerage. We had a national short sale negotiation company, and as we provided solutions to people, it kind of developed into additional business lines very naturally over the next, now 17 years. So I'll kind of pause there, but that was the kind of quick version of the backstory before kind of my real estate career.
Yeah, and what's your line of business, just for folks that they know what you're into today? What does DLP Capital do? And you're a best-selling author. I mean, there's so many things to tap into here, but let's just talk about what you're up to today and the line of business that you're into.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been a fun journey where I learned very early on that every business has really one job, which is to solve people's problems, right? And so early on, I realized, hey, if a lot of people continue to have the same problem, right? And if I can create a solution for that problem, I have a business, right? And so in the beginning, it was finding motivated home sellers who needed to sell their home and helping them if they were upside down on what they owed, doing short sales. If they needed to sell really quick or the home wasn't in sellable condition, just buying their home. Then when we were buying lots of homes, we needed to construct more. We couldn't find good contractors, and we started doing construction. And then at the bottom of the market, when we said, "Hey, let's build a rental portfolio," because there's a big need for rental housing, especially for working families. We started a property management company and launched private investment funds because we needed more capital to invest in buying more real estate. And so it was a natural evolution to where we are today, which is today DLP Capital has about $5 billion in assets under management. In total, we have about 700 employees, team members. We're headquartered in St. Augustine, Florida, and we're a private, financial services and real estate investment company. And more simply put, we invest in attainable workforce housing. So we provide housing that is and will remain affordable for working families. And we do that as a lender. We do that as an equity provider to other sponsors. We do so directly as a developer and operator. We own about 18,000 doors today, rental homes today. We're developing about 10,000 brand new rental home units today. And then we fund a couple $1 billion a year as a lender. We also own a sister company, a bank, about to be called DLP Capital Bank. Today, it's called Community State Bank of Florida. And all of our capital that supports all the things I just talked about is a set of evergreen, open-ended funds that we manage. And so we have direct relationships with, small business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, accredited investors. We have 2,400 families invested with us. We get to be stewards of their capital and deploy it as a lender, as an equity provider, as a direct sponsor.
And the problem that you guys are tackling is the workforce housing, which is a huge challenge right now, huge problem, right? Especially in this environment, which has become very, very inflationary, and obviously, the working people are absolutely getting squeezed from all ends in this economic environment.
Yeah, they are. And so for us, kind of our focus, and I kind of skipped over this sort of quickly, but we consider ourselves an impact company, and all of our funds are impact funds, meaning we're focused on making an impact in people's lives through our business and our strategy. Unlike some sort of impact strategies, we do that where it's not at all in conflict with generating great returns. We don't think doing good and generating returns have to be in conflict. It's harder to do both, but certainly can be done. And we do that through investing in housing that is and will remain affordable. So we define that by how our rents are less than 30% of the area median income or of our residents' income, which means they're not having to sacrifice the basics of healthcare, food, education to be able to pay their rent. And that's the fundamental sort of baseline of what we do. But our purpose at DLP is Dream, Live, Prosper, which is what DLP stands for, passionately making a positive impact in building thriving communities. And building thriving communities starts with having a safe, affordable place to live. But that's just the table stakes. That's just the beginning. And one of the things, I was with the CEO of Goodwill, about a year ago, and he said something that I found profound. And I know, you and I both have wives who are school teachers and are educators. And he said, and so our wives probably know this really well, but it was profound for me. He said, from kindergarten to third grade, children learn to read. From fourth grade on, children read to learn. And those third grade ability to read, third grade literacy scores are so critical, so important to determining not just educational success, but life success, that many counties in America size their prisons based on third grade literacy scores. Right?
Wow.
So that's how critical it is. Yet the average renter renting in an apartment community in America moves about every 14 months. Right? So to me, when that always when you think that mom with two kids, if she's moving her two kids every year, right, and they're changing schools, they're changing teachers, they're changing support systems, let alone, we all know the great saying that it takes a village to raise a child, right? They're leaving their neighbors, they're leaving the people they know, the area they're in. The effects that has on certainly your ability to read, but your learning altogether and your overall development are are significant. So for us, we invest in communities that are safe and affordable, but we want our residents to stay long term. We're targeting averaging 9-year average occupancies. We want people to stay there, want to be there, be a part of the community, be involved with their neighbors, have real connection, which is a really big deal. It's one of the other crises we're focused on, what we call the happiness crisis. There's a really scary stat out there that every year they survey teenagers and about how, unhappy or happy they are, right? And one of the questions they ask is, how often do you feel hopeless? And every year it was single digits that they felt hopeless regularly until 2015. And it spiked up to over 50%. Today, it's 57% of teenagers say they feel hopeless most days, right? Wow. And that was when the biggest connection point, that's when social media hit the cell phone, right? And that lack of real connection that got replaced with social media, right? And so we're big on creating these connection and real communities, and that starts with the physical place they live.
I want to take a moment to share something very important right now. Are you trying to figure out how to protect your savings from the banking collapse, which has already started, and the coming financial crisis? Most banks will fail. Deposits that are not insured by the FDIC will be lost, and there will be bank bail-ins. And this collapse in the banking system will lead to chaos in the financial system. Banks also provide loans to real estate investors. So what do you think is going to happen to lending in the event of a banking and a financial crisis? You can be proactive and position your savings to protect it, and also have access to it to use it to buy discounted assets by positioning it in your own banking system through the infinite banking concept strategy. Producers Wealth has put together a presentation at yourownbankingsystem.com where you will learn how to position capital outside of the banking system and the Wall Street casino, just like the ultra wealthy, to protect it and create a pool of tax-free liquid capital to capitalize on the massive opportunity to buy discounted assets, which is coming. You can access the presentation at yourownbankingsystem.com. That's yourownbankingsystem.com. Yeah, that's two things that you were just hitting on, the crisis with workforce housing and the communities, which is, if you think about it, that pick your country in the world. That's what a lot of countries are struggling with right now, because you could break it down to the individual and then the family, and the family has to fit into a community, but we have a lot of fractured communities, which just accelerates this problem. But yeah, and then of course the happiness crisis. It's interesting. I saw a couple of statistics too, just based on pharmaceutical drugs and prescriptions for antidepressants and so forth. And I mean, you have hockey stick levels of growth when it comes to certain demographics. And like you said, it was at the same time, you could look at you look at this and you go, well, what has just happened, right? This is before 2020. Like, how is this possible that there's such hockey stick growth when it comes to these prescriptions? And yeah, I mean, then it ties into the phone and the social media and companies that are being launched and so forth. So yeah, it could definitely be a force for good, or it leads to a lot of unhappiness too.
Yeah, and to that point, my big belief, and I don't, we can go down as deep as this as you choose, but I'm a strong believer in Christ. I'm Christian, and I believe that a connection with the Lord is the primary connection that so many people are missing, and turn to social media, turn to prescription drugs, turn to other things to make us happy, to give us that feeling of fulfillment or joy. And I've come to realize so much in the last couple of years, the true attack on faith, and how especially since COVID, how rapidly the decline has been and people who have a relationship with the Lord, and whatever that means exactly to you. To me, it's a relationship with Jesus. But it's there's so many amazing studies you can do that tie that relationship with a purpose, a meaning, a being bigger than yourself. What that does to your happiness and your feeling of connection and self-worth and so forth.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I would look at it as a spiritual crisis too. I think we have a massive spiritual crisis, and that it's been accelerating beyond hockey stick levels since 2020. And then if you then bring in the other things, the health crisis, which then besides the spiritual side of humans, you have the physical side, right? Where if you look at just the obesity rates, the health issues and so forth, and then, the mental, which we touch on with the prescription drugs and the happiness and so forth, like that spiritual, physical, and the mental stuff that you all need for wholesome happiness. I mean, there's a crisis in every single one of those areas. And this is for business owners and investors listening to this. This is the environment which you're operating in. Like you have to understand your environment, right? And this is the world which you're going to build your business and you're going to invest in, right?
Agreed. Yeah, really, really well said.
Now, one of the things that really interests me personally, and I think our listeners and viewers can really find a lot of value here. I want to go back to your story because we have, I could think of so many people in our network listening to this that all start. They do very well. Maybe they start as a realtor, maybe they start as a particular sales professional in, a line of business, and they really do well, and they could do very, very well, earning very, very good money and so forth. But then you get to a point, right, where, all right, I'm a very good professional now. How do I take it? And maybe, if you want to tie it to income, it's maybe a high six figure, you're getting close to seven figure. How do I really now ramp it up and take it to the next level? What was that moment in your journey and what advice can you give to someone they feel like they've hit a ceiling, they've done very well, they invest in themselves, they invest in their relationships and so forth. What can break them through that ceiling, which they've now kind of hit?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, for me, I entered the world of real estate at 17 years ago. I was about 20 years old. I was kind of fortunate enough. I wasn't afraid to hire and to basically free myself up to be a great, as you just called it, professional, i.e., I knew that my biggest value I could create in working with homeowners was working directly with them. So I knew I needed to be in calls with them, face to face with them. I needed to be, negotiating and structuring the deals. I needed to be, front and center. I needed support to free me up on a lot of, I'll call the administrative side, right? So I hired my first assistant about 3 weeks into my career. I hired my second one about 3 months in because the first one was overwhelmed. And then, a few months later, I started realizing, all right, because I was putting all my focus on being in front of clients, I couldn't handle all the volume I had. And so I hired a couple, salespeople that I could start giving some clients to, right? So I did all that in my very first few months. And then soon after I realized, all right, I'm out in appointments. This was going face to face, was my business of people's homes in my very beginning of my career. And I realized I'm driving so much that I'm on the phone, on the road so much that I'm losing so much time that I hired a full-time driver to support me so that I could be productive in between appointments, right? So I built this structure, which a lot of people aren't even willing to do that, but I built this structure to allow me to be focused on being great at my craft, right? A great professional. And that's what I did in my very beginning. And that allowed me to spend nearly 100% of my time on the things that, I could do best, the areas that I created the most value. But if I kind of stop there, which I think some people get there and they become really great professional, I think of, say a dentist, right, as an example, and they build this great support system around them so they can be, doing the high value work with patients, every minute of their day, right? If you get to that point and that's where you stop, then you're going to, forever be in the chair per se, right? As using the dentist example. So what I realized pretty early on was that I needed to develop an organization. I needed to develop leaders, not just a group of people that supported me. I've been a big Jim Collins fan for a long time. And, he calls it that, the clock builder and the time teller. And he says, most professionals, most leaders, they spend their whole life, their whole career as a time teller, meaning that everything has to come to you because you're the only person who can tell time, right? You're the only person who can make any decision. You're the only person who can kind of tell what time it is, right? And the real test of a leader and the real ability to build a great business and move to the next level is you've got to be a clock builder. You got to build other people capable of telling time, making decision, running areas of your organization without your personal involvement. And so I started doing that pretty early on. And then what I quickly realized, all of a sudden, now that I had all these different leaders and the organization started growing, I couldn't be in every meeting anymore, right? In the beginning, when you get 5 people or 10 people or 20 people, you can be in every meeting, you can be in every conversation, et cetera. I couldn't. And that's when I really started looking, how do I put the right set of principles, tools, resources, ways to communicate as the organization grew, and started taking the best ideas from different people like Gino Wickman and a system called EOS, people like Vern Harnish and a system called Scaling Up, Sean Covey and the 4 disciplines of execution, John Maxwell on leadership, Jim Collins, as we talked about, et cetera, Patrick Lencioni. And we built an operating system over a number of years we call the Elite Execution System, which is kind of our set of tools and resources that how we run, how we communicate, how we lead, how we manage the people function of the organization, created this framework of how I think about a company, which is all companies have 4 quadrants: people, strategy, operations, and acceleration. And those 4 areas have to grow together, a part of one plan, to get repeatable, consistent results. And I think the mistake a lot of people run into who are learners, like you and I, obviously, and people listening to podcasts, right, who are learners, who want to improve, want to get better. I listen to about 3 books a week, and when you're listening to all these books or all these different gurus, right, all these experts, a lot of people like to make it sound simple, right? If you just got really good at leadership, your business will skyrocket. If you just got great at content marketing, if you just got great at checklists, if you just got great at hiring, right? And if you put all your focus or too much focus on one area, you may get growth, but then you have troubles, right? And you go up and down. And Jim Collins says the great quote of more companies go out of business due to indigestion and starvation, right? And so what I learned is that you have to pull these things together, part of one clear system. And that's what the Elite Execution System is, where we pull it together and have a very consistent discipline plan where the people plan matches the operational plan, the strategic plan, the acceleration, sales and marketing plan. And that's what allowed us. Now, this is year 17. We've grown our revenue every single year for 17 years by over 50%. We're Inc. 5000 for 11. We're Inc. 5000 for 11 years in a row, which measures your growth over a 3-year period of time. More companies are out of business 5 years after they make the Inc. 5000 list than they ever make the list again, right? We've been on 11 years in a row. So we maintain this really consistent growth. I've never hit the top 500, probably never will. I've been between 785 and 2,600 every year for 11 years straight, right? Consistent, disciplined growth. And now we're 700 people and 450 million of operating revenue last year and so forth.
So I love it how you put it all together, that everything has to grow in equilibrium. Because when you said that, I'm like, that's so true, because you identify areas for improvement in a business, usually as an entrepreneur, and that becomes the obsession and the focus. And then all of a sudden you do that, and now you're off even kilt again, because you're putting so much focus and energy into this area which you've identified, right? But you have to have a system, which I love that how you put that. And you put this all together just for folks. I just want to share this. Don's got a great book, Building an Elite Organization, The Blueprint to Scaling a High Growth, High Profit Business, available on Amazon. So you can grab a copy of that book too, where he goes exactly through this entire system. From the professional, then going into, growing the team. I mean, in the beginning, it's the people, right? And then the systems around the people. What was it sort of, as you just shared, was it kind of like all that you realized at the same time, this is going to happen, the systems is going to scale at the same time and grow as the people?
Yeah, absolutely. And one note, to your point, so Building an Elite Organization, you can download it on on anywhere, but also listen on Audible and Libro and such as well. And then the next book, which is written to frontline employees, called Building an Elite Career, comes out in a couple months. And then DLPelite.com, which is kind of the website for the book. You can download a ton of resources and tools, such as the tool we built called the Compass, which lays out the strategic plan that ties in the people plan, the operational plan, et cetera, acceleration, to pull it all together in a clear way that allows you to grow it as one. And absolutely, I mean, when you take the time, you say, all right, here's my strategic goals. We call it, the overall tool, the Compass, I think it has our purpose, our mission, our big, hairy, audacious goals, some checkpoints longer term, our strengths, our weaknesses, our revenue drivers. And then we narrow it down, our flywheel, big picture strategic areas. Then we narrow down what's our 3-year aim for the organization. What are we going to look like in 3 years? I try to be able to close my eyes and envision, what is this company going to look like 3 years from now, in as much detail as possible in this changing, VUCA world, right? And then what's the 1-year bullseye? What are the things we're going to accomplish this year, despite the whirlwind, despite the things going on around us? What are the things for sure we're going to hit? What are the key numbers we're going to accomplish this year? What are the big improvements we're going to make strategically, operationally, from people's standpoint and from an acceleration standpoint? And when you lay that out in a clear way, it kind of comes together quite naturally. All right, if these are the goals, well, what people do we need to do that? What operational improvements need to happen? And then it's always a little bit of the trail saying, all right, if we put more focus on what we accomplished this year, how is that going to set us back to what we want to accomplish in 3 years or make it harder, right? Like building and investing in technology almost never is going to help you this year, right? It's almost always going to distract you from hitting goals this year, right? It's almost going to slow down revenue because you're going to put resources and energy around something that's not going to add any tangible value this year, but it might add tangible value 3 years from now, right? So that's all kind of a process of how you pull that together and make decisions on how you want to go about building your business, going about building an elite organization, as the title of the book.
And that'll take you from our discussion, where a lot of folks, they're a great soldier, right? The professional. And then you get to become a general, which is the business, running a business or a division of the business. And then eventually you have to become strategic and invest in these systems, because that'll eventually have you become the king or the queen, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. I've never thought about that exact way. I just had a couple of comments here. I think the thing that some people get confused about. Great book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution by Sean Covey. He built this whole system around wildly important goals, WIGs, as he calls them, and he has some really great quotes in the book, some great things that help bring clarity to people, which is, the couple of things. So first is, the urgent is rarely important, and the important is rarely urgent. Most of the things that we spend our time on are the urgent, and those are the easy things to focus on, because those are the things that act on us, right? The emails, the phone calls, the things coming right at us. And because these are the things coming at us, people coming to us for them, the things we're already good at. It's not that hard to answer an email, to take a phone call, and things I already know how to do. It's much harder to do the important things that you have to initiate the action, the things that are proactive, the big projects, the priorities, moving things forward. That's the hard stuff that you can easily distract yourself with the urgent things, right? Tim Ferriss has a great quote of that, busyness is another form of laziness. And we all are busy, right? And you can get very easy to get busy with all the urgent things coming at us every day. And the other thing that I think was really powerful for me to think about, when you start thinking, all right, I need to start building these systems and building this business and investing in this structure, that doesn't mean that you're going to get to a point as a CEO or leader of your organization, in my opinion, where you're going to now be able to not do the day-to-day job, that you're going to be able to step out and just work on the business all day. That sounds wonderful and nice. So I'm just going to hire everybody else to do all the work, and I'll work on all the big picture stuff. That sounds wonderful, but that's not how it really works. The leaders I know who are most successful keep their feet in the dirt, right? Keep their feet in the ground while their heads in the cloud at the same time. And it's about being able to dedicate a little bit of time, right? It's that spending 10% of your time on the important things, right? The really big things that are going to move the business forward, that are going to shape the direction, the strategic picture, putting in system, making the big directional decisions, while you're still spending 80 or 90% of your time in the business. And you have to be able to balance those two things at the same time to get the kind of results that I'm talking about, right? If you've got venture capital money and you don't need to make profits, and you can just drive revenue and just work on the big stuff. And you don't have to be very good at what you do today. You just have to be able to grow. Maybe you don't have to do that. But if you need to actually be profitable while you grow, you've got to keep your feet in the dirt. You've got to keep your head on understanding what's going on, attached to what's happening at the front line, even as you grow the organization. It's about just that discipline of spending those few hours every week on the big things that are going to move the long-term direction of the organization while you stay in touch. And in my last kind of comment around that, and I'm going to switch gears a quick, but whether you're a professional and you're a dentist, to go back to that example, and that's what you want to do, and that's your focus, where you want to be a general, as you said, or the king or queen. I like that. What I think one of the biggest mistakes I see in people trying to go through that journey in any which way, and is the belief that in order to be a great operator or professional or general, that means that I have to sacrifice in all the other areas of my life. And so one of the big things that we teach in our organization to all of our employees, that we spend a lot of our time, spend a lot of my time on, is the concept. It's one of our core values of living fully. And I think about life and the 8 F's of life, which are faith, family, friends, freedom, fun, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. And I believe in today's world, with the technology we have today, the flexibility we have in our work style, you can excel in all 8 of those areas at the exact same time. That those areas don't have to be in conflict with each other. It's not like it was maybe for our parents or grandparents, where, hey, in order to be productive, I've got to stay in the office to 7, 8, 9 o'clock. And that means I'm going to miss everything for my kids, and I don't have time for my health and whatnot. You can do all these things at the same time. And the way I think about it, there's 8 F's of life: fitness and finance and family and friends and faith. I want to spend as much of my time hitting home runs as possible, i.e., where I'm working on 4 of these areas at the same time, right? So I think about it. If I can work on 4 or 5 of these in the exact same day, the exact same activity, awesome, right? If I'm hitting just singles all the time, nothing wrong with a single, but if I'm only working on one of these areas, I want to do a little bit of my time there. And so I want to integrate these areas of my life. So I call it work-life integration, instead of, most people think about it as work-life balance. Jeff Bezos came out recently and said, work-life balance is an antiquated concept. It's a concept of that one is in conflict with another. He said it's more like a circle, and that's what we call it the personal compass, another tool we built that's in those free tools, where you integrate these 8 areas together: the goals in your business, the goals with all the other goals in your life. And it's amazing when you just take that approach, how you can achieve what you want in all areas of your life at the same time. Not that they're ever going to all be going exactly perfect at any time, but you can grow these all and improve them all at the same time, and really, as we call it, live fully.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate you sharing that, and especially the part just about how you can have it all, because a lot of folks, we have very driven people that are very focused, and sometimes leaning toward in one area takes away from the others. But there's definitely a way, like you said, to do activities that just spreads it all across those 8 F's, as you just shared. That was awesome.
And one quick note to that, sorry, is a big part of that, how you do that. And we were talking about it before. I virtual school my kids, and I have a 11, 10, and 1-year-old, and built a support system around that, a traveling teacher and her husband. You might say, well, that's not something I could do today, and I couldn't have done that either 5 years ago, right? But I made it a plan then and started putting things into action. And so it's getting your tribe, the people in your life, right? What life is more important about is who you do life with and what you do in their life, right? And so thinking about the goals and the things we want to accomplish with, all right, who are the people who I want on that ride with me? And if you can get them bought in to what your goals are and get them a part of your success, which these are the people you love and who love you, they should want to be a part of your success, then you can build a life around the way you want, right? So when I go and travel, I'm spending 30 days for the next month in Alaska, Vancouver, Bozeman, Glacier, Yellowstone, Jackson Hole. And I'll be working over those 30 days, right? I'm still engaged in my business. I'll be working. I'll still work 50, 60 hours a week, right? But I'll take a lot of Fridays off. I'll largely take the weekends off, right? I'm on East Coast here now, so I be able to get done, 3, 4 in the afternoon instead of 6, 7 in the afternoon, right? And spend plenty of time, create great memories with my kids and my family. We have a goal our BHAG as a family is 1,000 extraordinary days in 100 different places. And so we'll be out making extraordinary days, as we call it, while I still run my business. And I've got, my leaders in my organization know this is a priority to me, and they're bought in and understanding how that affects them, right? Of course, I had to get my wife on board and kids and everybody else that this was what we wanted to do. And it causes certainly some sacrifices to do that. I have to get up extra early in the morning, right, when I'm in different time zones and whatnot, right? And yeah, some days would I say I'd rather not work at all and just go hike all day? Sure. And then I have to work, right? But it's a great balance to be able to have these experiences. All of us have a little bit of sacrifice in order to live the life we want.
I want to take a moment to recognize one of our sponsors, Penumbra Solutions. Life settlements investments have allowed financial and banking institutions to not only buy their equity contractually, but also diversify their capital from any economic, market, and geopolitical risk. It's been part of the billion-dollar blueprint followed by institutional investors. If you're an accredited investor, you can also now participate in this vehicle with enormous growth potential. You can watch an informational webinar presented by one of the premier organizations providing life settlement investments, Penumbra Solutions, at cashflowninja.com/life settlements. That's cashflowninja.com/life settlements. The password to access that webinar is Penumbra, all lowercase. And we talk about this concept of creating games that are worth winning. And this, because a lot of times people, whether they know it or not, they create a game and then they win the game, but the winning of the game didn't look anything like they even thought it was. In fact, they could have now created a different prison for themselves. Yep. One from
all the time.
Yeah, from which they wanted to escape. And I know, because I did that, years ago. So I could definitely speak from experience. Leave one prison, try to get out of it, and you build another one for yourself. So you have to be very, very intentional. And you have to create this game, which I love that you did, and you made this a priority, got everybody to buy it in, and now it became a reality.
Yeah, well said. And I actually have done a talk on some big stages on what I call the 5 keys to success, significance, and happiness. And I've actually sort of added a 6 or sort of what I call the secret sauce to it. So the first is intentionality, right? Being intentional about what you want to accomplish in your life, what you want to do, and who you want to do it with, as I mentioned earlier. Having clear purpose. Third is goals. So having very clear goals. Fourth is grit. 5 is having a growth mindset, which I spend a lot of time talking about. It's the number one area I'm focused on with my children today. And then the 6, what I call the, I've been just saying is the 6 one is sort of the secret sauce to those 5 is being present. And I think that's where a lot of people go right. And those people who listen to something like our conversation right now, and they say, hey, I want to go and do these things. Right? Example, people say, hey, I want to be a better father, and I'm going to start being home more, right? And so I'm going to start, coming home. So I coach my kids' sports now 17 seasons in a row, and I get home for dinner most days, and so other people say, oh, I want to do that. I want to start doing that, right? Well, if I get home for dinner at 5:30, and then I'm either on the phone, that's just the words from my computer, and I'm just ignoring my family, right? Or maybe not as obvious bad is, all right, I'm there with them, not on my phone, but my mind is somewhere completely else, and I'm ignoring. My kids are asking me questions. I'm not actually listening. I'm just saying, I'm just letting them go play on their iPads or watch TV. In many ways, that's even worse than not even being home, right? So I think, I'm being a good father, I'm committing, I'm getting home at 5:30, but now I'm fully distracted and I'm not present in that moment at all because I'm so worried about what's next. So I think about being present is where I'm at, sitting physically is not in conflict at all with where my mind is, right? When my mind can be where my body is, because I know this is where I'm supposed to be right now. This is where I've decided, I've mapped out my life, I've mapped out my schedule, I've mapped out my days. This is how I want to spend my evenings. This is what I've committed to is the most important thing I should be doing on a weekday evening, that this is where I should allow my mind to be and put aside all the other stuff that's going on. I'll deal with that, afterwards. Once I get my kids to bed each night, then I get caught up and clear the deck and prepare for the next day. But while I'm with them, I need to be fully there. And that being present, I think, is where a lot of people kind of go awry is we're so anxious and so a lot of us so motivated, right, to want to get to the next step that we are in such a rush, right, that to put ourselves in the next prison, as you said, that we can lose sight of being in that moment. I saw a great billboard the other day when I took my kids to a baseball game that said, "These are the good old days," right? And we can easily forget that, right?
Yep. Absolutely. I have another question because I'm thinking about, a lot of questions that I've been asked, and also questions that some of our listeners might have too. So you're in a couple of lines of business, right? How many lines of business do you guys have now at DLP?
It depends how you think about it, but we have, as we kind of think about it, four or five platforms. So
Gotcha.
banking, property management, lending, and investment or fund management are sort of our core platforms, and
Right.
developments, right? That's one.
Yeah, because this will be a next question. At what stage? Because you start on one, your core kind of business and your focus, and you build that line of business. At what stage does it make sense to add something that's symbiotic or that can be added on and complements what you're already doing,
Yeah.
and something else that you're bringing to your existing customers or clients? At what's your thinking around that?
So I'll first answer. So we do. So one of our core areas of focus of how we lend money and deploy equity is when we find other great developers, real estate sponsors, and they become what we call an elite member, and we help them implement our operating system, the Elite Execution System. We provide them with consulting and coaching and support. And part of that journey is they fly into my offices, the owner and his leadership team, and we do a day we call Compass Day, where we lay out that direction, that tool we talked about. We lay out the direction to their organization. And so I've done, I don't know, 50 of these now, 75 of these, and everyone's very different than every other one. I tell them, whatever the biggest, area that you think I can help you in your business, that's what we'll focus on, right? And so they come, they have this compass at least partially drafted, and almost more times than not, almost always, we end up in a conversation like what you just asked me. And almost always it's, all right, right now they've got a specific strategy that they're doing. Maybe they're doing it in a couple markets. And now that, so let's say they acquire multifamily properties in Dallas, Fort Worth, right? And now they want to go and they're a 20-person company that does this. And now all of a sudden they want to do property management in-house, they want to do construction management in-house, they want to get into ground up development, they want to expand to 7 new states, and they want to do all that at the same time. Oh, and launch an investment fund. And they have, 15 people or 20 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so almost always our conversation is pulling that back and pulling back, saying, well, why would we go to all these new markets? Have you tapped out the size and scale in Dallas, Fort Worth? Probably not, right? Right? Why are we going into new business lines? And almost always we end up in the meetings, actually me helping them scale down the number of places they're going to go, right? Warren Buffett's attributed to many great quotes. One of them is the difference between billionaires and millionaires is billionaires say no more often, right? And the ability to choose a very few great ideas that you're going to pursue is very, very hard for entrepreneurs. And so the way I think about it is, and people look at DLP as maybe in some ways we look like a bad example because we're in a bunch of different business lines, and but we didn't do that overnight, right? So the way I think about it is we don't ever launch a new business line until what we're already doing is very profitable. I've got strong leadership in place. And we feel what we're going to go into is going to be complementary, and that we are going to be able to put the resources and dedication to be, world class at what we're going to do. And so we find ourselves, more often scaling down the things we're doing and where we're doing them than scaling up over the years as we've gotten bigger, which sounds, the opposite to most people think about it. And then the other important point to that question is, it's a lot easier to go and expand into additional business lines or additional businesses if you've mastered a set of business tools and resources and language and a purpose and a mission and values that you can carry into other businesses. So all of our business lines all are part of the same purpose, all share the same mission, all have the same core values, all run the Elite Execution System, all run the same meeting rhythm, the same way we prioritize, the same way we solve issues, the same way we set goals. And that's the only way that I can be in a bunch of business lines, is I know the leadership teams in each area are running the same playbook, right? They're running the same systems. They're sharing and contributing to the same goal. They all share the same, we call core client. That's the only way we can be in a bunch of different business lines. If they had, different goals, different values, different missions, running different playbooks, it'd be near impossible.
I want to take a moment to recognize one of our sponsors. My friend Dave Zook says, you can be conventional or you can be wealthy. Pick one. At The Real Asset Investor, Dave and his team bring their investors high-yield investment opportunities across several asset classes for cash flow, tax impact, and equity growth. He and his team are one of the top 5 ATM operators in the country, and they have an investment opportunity available to accredited investors right now in the ATM space. To learn more about their ATM funds that produce tax-free cash flow, visit therealassetinvestor.com. That's therealassetinvestor.com. It's something that a lot of folks struggle with, and it's hard sometimes to hear, like you just said, like, no, you should not be doing it. You should just focus on what you're doing and max out the space that you're in, rather than, what's the I believe it's and I butcher quotes, but it's maybe a Chinese proverb or something that says, he who chases many rabbits catches none, or something.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I also remind myself, we measure something at DLP we call productivity per person, which is net revenue divided by our number of employees. And that's our number one way to measure our growth and our success. Are we getting more production per person as we get bigger? So when we started measuring productivity per person, we were 100,000 a person. Now we're 450. And when we started measuring, Apple was at 2 million a person, right? They were the most productive company, in the world, and they still are. And we're now at 450. So we've got our targets on them, and realistically, we think we'll hit Apple's level of productivity in 5 or 6 years, which is pretty cool. But my point is, Apple rolls out a new product every 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? They do hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue, have tens of thousands of employees, right? And they launch a new product every few years, right? Yet entrepreneurs with 20 employees and 5 million in revenue want to launch a new business line every week, right? And it's a good reminder.
Very good reminder. Don, what are you studying these days? Like, what are you learning? What are you researching? I'm always interested in to see what other very successful people are studying and learning.
Yeah, thank you. So, I read a lot. So I use Audible. We provide a similar app called Libro as a perk to all of our employees, where they can download unlimited audiobooks. And I stick with Audible because I've used it just for many, many years and have thousands of books. But I'm always reading, always learning about a wide range of topics. My most consistent topic I'm always studying is leadership, and it's the center of any great organization. And I'm constantly striving to be a better leader. I'd say over the last year, I spent a lot of time studying longevity and health and wellness. And we've actually hosted a big event on longevity, where we had literally the world's experts on longevity come join us in Puerto Rico for a 3-day event. And that was really cool. So spent a lot of time on that, because we talk a whole lot about that. Of most recent, I've been reading a number of books around, I'll call, like the most recent book I'm reading, just finished, was called Sacred Pace by a gentleman named Terry. Can't think of Terry's last name, but out of Houston, Texas, and a really interesting, built a really incredible multi-billion-dollar company, and talks about how he only works 40 hours a week. He set that principle 30 plus years ago. He doesn't make any decision without first taking the time to listen to what God is telling him to do on any major decision. And he kind of takes a slower pace, per se, than most people would think. We're so quick to think we have the answer, so quick to make decisions, in such a rush in life. And his approach to taking your time to listen to what God wants you to do is it was really powerful, and kind of like, any of us, right? When you hear a writer or a guru say it, it's great, But when you hear somebody who's built a multi-billion-dollar business actually on doing what he's saying, it's pretty powerful. So that was pretty cool. I just finished Elon Musk's biography, the one that he actually participates in. The author's Amanda something. That was really interesting. I didn't know nearly as much about him, and it was a quite interesting read. So those are some of the things I've been reading and learning about of most recent.
Awesome. Now, the show, we talk a lot about business, we talk about investing, but it's also about a legacy and leaving a legacy. So I always ask first-time guests, if you cannot pass on any money to future generations, and you are only allowed to pass on 3 principles or values to them to help them build wealth and achieve happiness and success, what would they be?
So I hope you mind. I'm going to come to exact answer. I want to think about it for a second. But so the last thing I was going to say before I just stopped was legacy. And I actually just spent a day and a half with David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby, doing a workshop with him on legacy. We're hosting a large event in Ponte Vedra Beach in November called the Prosperity, Family, Wealth, and Legacy Conference. We just did in March a whole event centered around legacy in New Orleans. So a big part of what we do for the families that invest with them is we help them avoid what we call the shirt sleeves in 3 generations, right? The fact that first generation wealth creators have their wealth typically lost by the second or third generation. And losing the wealth isn't the sad part or the scary part to me. It's the fact that the wealth became a liability, not an asset to future generations, right? It enabled instead of enabled success and growth, and so often that comes down to the issues aren't investment decisions, they're not tax planning issues, they're establishing clear values and meaning to your family, lessons you want to teach them. And so right now my kids are, as I mentioned earlier, 11, 10, and 1. We do a family meeting every single month. Every month we go through and we talk about one of our family core values. Our core values spell out be a light. I can go through what they all are, but we've got a clear set of principles that I want to pass on to my kids. I've already gone and recorded what we call a lifetime memoir, a video message to kind of my grandkids and great grandchildren, wrote kind of a book to my grandchildren. Done a lot of things to make sure that if I got hit by that proverbial bus tomorrow, those lessons, pass on. So right now, in terms of the specific areas I'm focused on with my children are instilling the value of grit, the value of hard work, and part of that is struggle. You've interviewed many people on your podcast, successful people, and almost everybody has their American Idol story, their rags to riches, the struggles that they went through and they were able to overcome. But for some reason, successful people think it's their job to rob their children of struggle. And we try to avoid our children going through struggle. And that's why they come out soft and incapable of taking care of themselves. And you have to allow your children to struggle. So I spent a lot of time trying to make sure I put my children in positions that I'm not trying to make their life hard, but allowing them to struggle, not trying to save them from it. And that helps build the hardiness, the grit. And I'll just give a really quick example to that. So my oldest son is a great athlete, and so I focus a lot on grit with him. Is not highlighting, hey, you had 4 touchdowns last week, but highlighting the activities he did, the practice, the work, the improvement, right? That got you the results, right? And that right now at his age, going into 6th grade, I spent a lot of time teaching the principles of leadership and developing his teammates and encouragement and not showboating and those types of things. So I do a lot around grit. That sports are a great example, but another great example from sports is struggle. So my son is the second best dribbler on his basketball team by a distant second, and he's the star defender and scorer and whatnot, but he's not the best dribbler. And the other kid, the point guard on the team, is by far it's his close friend. And anyway, we played against a really good team, and his friend, who's the point guard, had the ball stolen from him about 10 times halfway through the first half, right? And the kid was so embarrassed that all of a sudden he had a bellyache. And so his dad, who's the head coach, took him out of the game, and his mom came over and coddled him, and he was obviously clearly embarrassed, right? So my son took over as point guard duties. And so my son's now having similar success, right? Where they're taking the ball from him every time down court. And he's got a bellyache, right? He fell and he hurt his knee, and his knee hurts. He's looking over at me on the sideline every chance he can. His eyes are watered up, and he's embarrassed, right? And everything as dad, I want to just take him out of the game and give him a hug and let somebody else have to deal with the pressure, right? But I didn't. I had to ignore eye contact with him, but I made him stay out there the whole game, right? And guess what happened after that? He wanted to become a great dribbler. And now he dribbles 30 minutes to an hour every day, right? An hour ago, right before this podcast, down beneath me is my garage. He's down there dribbling, right? And now he's a much better dribbler. And that shock of, hey, he's always a star and he always looks so good, of having to struggle and be embarrassed has created a much higher work ethic. So that's a big message I want to instill. Another big one is growth mindset. And growth mindset, if you've never read the book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, highly recommend it. One of the most impactful books I've ever read. And the concept of a growth mindset is the belief that if you're willing to put forth the work to learn, and you're willing to do the hard work of taking action, you can accomplish anything, right? Getting out of that belief that I'm just not good at this. It's just not who I am. I just wasn't, born with these abilities. Understanding that if you're willing to work and you're willing to learn, you can do anything. And I'll just give one more quick example. So you could have two children who both really are great students. They really get A's. They really want great grades. They really want to be the top of their class. And they both go take a science test. And let's say they both get a C on that science test. And the kid with the growth mindset is going to say, darn, I'm really upset I got the C. I want to know what questions did I get wrong, right? So that next time I can get them right. I want to know what they can do to learn, get better, so that on the next test, next opportunity, they do better. The kid with the fixed mindset is going to say things like, the teacher didn't teach me the right things. That wasn't what was supposed to be on the test. I'm just not good at science. It's not fair, right? They both can be very motivated and driven. But that approach of when they face hardship, when things don't go the way they want, the belief that I can learn and I can get better, or the belief there's nothing I can do about it, I'm just a victim of my circumstances, has so many ripple effects through life and how you approach challenges, right? There's that great quote of, of everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? Yep. When you get punched in the face, it's what do you do then, right? Do you believe that you can get better next time, or do you give up, right? And so those are the two really big lessons. And then let's throw the third one in, if I've narrowed it down, is just I want my children to have a strong relationship with the Lord and understand the path to salvation is through a relationship with Christ, and understand that we don't have the answers. So all of us as entrepreneurs, we get so many people pat us on the back and tell us we're so great and we're so smart and want to listen to us talk, kind of like we're doing right now. And it can get to our heads and we think, hey, I have all the answers. I'm so smart. And to understand that any knowledge I do have, right, is because it was given to me. I was given these blessings, put in this situation from a much greater power than I.
Fantastic. Where can folks follow you? Where can they stay just informed of all the many projects that you're involved with, and where can they just keep in touch with you?
Yeah, so DLPcapital.com is our main website. DLPelite.com is the link that I mentioned that has all the free downloads. You can see all of our events on our website. I'm on, my team's on all the social media platforms. To be honest, I'm not on too much, but I do check LinkedIn. I'd love for you to join us. I do, as you see on our website, our events, live events, virtual events. Most of them are free. Welcome to come join us, stay in touch. I run a podcast as well called Impact with Don Wenner. Welcome you to check out as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show and just sharing your knowledge and your journey with us. This has been extremely valuable. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Been an honor. Thank you.
And thank you to all of our listeners and our viewers for spending the most valuable resource, your time, once again with me on the Cashflow Ninja. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. Until next time, live infinitely. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.